You stand there in the half-light before dawn, boots sinking into the damp grass that clings to your ankles like a secret it refuses to release. The yard is yours, or so you once believed. 12 years of silent mornings have taught you otherwise. 12 years of watching from the same cracked window ledge, breath fogging the glass, heart tightening each time the feeder swings empty in the wind. No birds. Not even the bold chickadee that used to dart in like a gray arrow. Only the hush, that deep, accusing hush after wings explode away into the hedge. You have felt this before, the ache of being invisible to them, the slow burn of wondering what invisible line you crossed. And tonight, after another dawn without a single flutter, you decide the time has come. Not to shout it from rooftops, not to film it for strangers, just to speak the truth you have bled for in solitude. The 5 quiet mistakes that drive them away. Not with noise or sudden terror, but with something worse, a slow, creeping doubt that settles in their ancient bones, until your yard becomes a place they simply choose to forget. The first truth you must understand is the seed itself. You think you are generous. You fill the hopper with that bright, cheap mix from the big box store, the one labeled Wild Bird Blend in cheerful letters. But stand here with me at first light and watch what really happens. A tufted titmouse lands. You see it hesitate on the rim, head cocked, black eyes scanning the scattered kernels. It pecks once, twice, then discards a fat, pinkish grain of milo with a sharp flick of its beak. The grain hits the ground and lies there, useless. Another bird arrives, a housefinch this time, its feathers still rumpled from sleep. It tries. Same story. They pick, they sort, they leave half the feeder untouched. You have watched this ritual 1,000 times. The mess builds beneath the pole. Shells, rejected filler, a carpet of waste that begins to rot in the rain. And the birds? They feel the waste. They sense the emptiness in what you offer. Their high metabolism demands fuel that burns clean and fast. Black oil sunflower, Niger for the goldfinches, shelled peanuts for the nuthatches. Not this diluted promise of abundance. You remember the winter of your 3rd year observing. The yard was silent for weeks after you switched to the bargain bag. One morning, you stood in the freezing dark and poured out the cheap mix, heart heavy, then replaced it with straight black oil sunflower. The change came before the sun cleared the fence line. First 1 cardinal, red as fresh blood against the frost. Then 3. Then a dozen. They descended in a living wave, wings cutting the air with soft whistles. You felt it then, the sudden knot in your throat. They had not abandoned you. You had been feeding them lies wrapped in pretty packaging, and they, with their sharp instincts honed over millions of years, had simply walked away from the table. What if you had known sooner? What if every rejected kernel had not whispered to them that this place cannot be trusted? The science of it lives in their beaks and bellies, not in textbooks. Birds taste bitterness we cannot. They detect toxins from mold long before we smell them. Cheap seed spoils faster. It carries the ghosts of humidity and age. They know, and they choose silence over sickness. You feel the weight of that first mistake now, don't you? The quiet way it erodes trust, 1 peck at a time. The second thing almost everyone gets wrong is where you place the feeder. You think any spot will do. Hang it near the patio for easy viewing, or out in the open lawn so the sun hits the metal just right. But stand with me again at twilight, when the light turns everything gold and dangerous. Downy woodpecker lands. It clings to the suet cage you mounted on the open pole, 20 feet from the nearest shrub. Beautiful. Until the shadow falls. A sharp-shinned hawk slices across the yard without a sound, wings folded, eyes locked. The woodpecker explodes upward in panic. The whole flock you didn't even know was there bursts from the grass in a storm of wings and alarm calls. They vanish into the thicket, and they do not return for days. You have counted the hours. 3 full dawns of emptiness after that single shadow. Birds do not forget danger. Their brains are wired for it. Tiny, dense, packed with memory cells that map every escape route in your yard. They need cover within 10 feet. Dense shrubs, low evergreens, tangled branches that let them explode sideways when death dives from above. Not your open stage where they feel naked under the sky. Place the feeder too close to the house and you add another terror: the glass. You have seen the heartbreaking thump against your window, the small body tumbling into the flower bed. Windows kill more birds than cats in some neighborhoods. The reflection tricks them. They see sky where there is only death. You remember the summer you moved the feeder. It took courage. You dragged the pole closer to the wild rose hedge, thorns catching your sleeves like old friends warning you to slow down. That first evening, a family of cardinals arrived. The male, brilliant scarlet, fed his mate while she huddled in the leaves just behind him. You stood motionless at the window, tears blurring the scene, because you understood at last. They were not afraid anymore. They were home. The placement was not about your convenience. It was about their survival. Their fragile, furious will to live another hour. Short breath, long silence. That is how the second mistake works. It does not scream. It simply leaves them exposed until they vote with their wings and never return. The third mistake cuts deeper. It lives in neglect. You walk past the feeder on a rainy afternoon and notice the hulls clumped in wet piles. You tell yourself, it can wait. Tomorrow. But the mold is already there, invisible at first, then gray and creeping. Stand with me in the damp pre-dawn and inhale. That faint, sour smell rising from the tray. Birds smell it too, stronger than you ever could. You have watched a Carolina wren approach one morning, pause, then back away as if burned. Its tiny body trembled, not from cold, from the knowledge that this food carried illness, salmonella, aspergillosis, tiny killers that spread through shared surfaces faster than gossip. Dirty feeders become disease traps. The very act of gathering turns lethal. You have seen whole flocks thin out over weeks, not because they left, but because the weak ones simply stopped coming, and the strong ones learned to fear the place that once promised life. Your own transformation came in the 4th year. You had grown lazy. The feeder sat uncleaned through a long wet spell. One dawn, you finally emptied it, scrubbed every surface with boiling water and a wire brush until your hands blistered. You refilled with fresh seed. Nothing happened for 2 days. The yard stayed quiet. Then, on the 3rd morning, the wren returned. It landed, cocked its head, and sang. A single liquid note that broke something open inside you. More birds followed, slowly, cautiously, as if testing whether the betrayal had truly ended. You wept that day. Not loudly, just silent tears tracking down your face while you stood barefoot on the cold deck. 12 years of watching had taught you this. Birds do not forgive easily. But when they do, the trust feels like forgiveness from something ancient and wild. The third mistake is the one that poisons slowly. It turns your gift into a threat. And only your hands, raw and willing, can undo it. Now the 4th truth. You think seed alone is enough. You fill the hopper, pat yourself on the back, and wait for paradise. But stand here with me when the fledglings appear in late spring. Tiny beaks gaping, parents frantic for protein. Your sunflower sits untouched while the adults hunt the grass for insects that are not there because your yard is too tidy, too perfect, too empty of life. Birds need more than calories. They need variety, the way you need air. Suet for woodpeckers and warblers in winter, mealworms for the bluebirds raising young. a shallow dish of water that ripples under their wings. You have watched a goldfinch dip its beak into clean water and lift its head in ecstasy, throat pulsing as it drinks. The sound is soft, almost private. A small splash that echoes louder in your chest than any feeder bell. The year you added a bird bath changed everything. You placed it near the hedge, shallow enough for sparrows, with a stone in the center for footing. The first visitor was a mockingbird. It splashed for 20 minutes, wings beating the water into diamonds in the sunlight. Then came the warblers. Tiny flashes of yellow and gray you had never seen before. They bathed, they drank, they trusted. Because you had finally spoken their full language, not just food, life. What if you had kept offering only seed? The yard would have stayed half alive. A fast food stop instead of sanctuary. The fourth mistake starves their souls, even while their bellies stay full. It whispers that you do not truly see them. And birds, more than anything, need to be seen. The fifth and final mistake is the cruelest, because it hides behind patience. You try for a week, maybe two. The birds do not come in the numbers you dreamed of. Discouraged, you let the feeder go empty. Or you change the food suddenly. Or you move the pole again because you want a better view from the kitchen. You think nothing of it, but they do. Birds are creatures of pattern. They map your yard in their memory the way you map the lines on your own palm. They learn your rhythms. When the seed vanishes for days, they mark the spot as unreliable. When you suddenly switch from sunflower to a new blend, they taste the difference and hesitate. When you walk too close too often, even with soft steps, their wariness returns like an old wound reopening. You have lived this one most painfully. In your 7th year, you grew restless. The yard felt too quiet after a harsh winter. You stopped refilling for 10 days while you traveled. When you returned, the silence was total. No cardinals, no finches, only the wind moving through empty perches. It took 6 weeks of perfect consistency. Fresh seed every morning before the sun rose, no sudden movements, no changes to earn them back. 6 weeks of standing at the window each dawn, whispering apologies no one but the birds could hear. And then one morning, the first junco appeared, gray as storm clouds. It landed, ate, looked straight toward your window as if it knew. You felt the transformation then, from observer to participant. From someone who fed birds to someone who had finally learned to wait with them. The fifth mistake is the one that breaks the fragile bridge you have built. It tells them your yard is temporary, a whim, not a covenant. And once they believe that, they fly on to places that never break their promise. You stand now in the full light of morning. The yard is no longer empty. A flock of pine siskins swirls around the Niger feeder like living smoke. A red-bellied woodpecker hammers the suet with rhythmic certainty. The wren sings from the rose hedge, its voice bright as new leaves. You feel the weight of every mistake you once made lift, replaced by something heavier and sweeter. Responsibility. Wonder. The raw, aching knowledge that these lives, fragile, feathered, fierce, have chosen you back. 12 years of silence have brought you here. Not to mastery, never that. Only to humility. To the understanding that feeding birds is not about filling a hopper. It is about becoming the kind of presence they can trust with their lives. One clean feeder, one safe perch, one consistent dawn at a time. If these words have stirred something in you, if you stand at your own window now, heart tight with recognition, then do this. Go outside at first light tomorrow. Really look. Clean one thing. Move one feeder closer to cover. Replace the cheap seed with something honest. And wait. Not with expectation, with the same quiet intensity you have felt reading these lines. Then come back here, in the space where strangers share their hidden truths, and tell me what you saw. Not the birds. Tell me what changed inside you when they finally stayed. Because the yard is never just a yard. It is a mirror. And the birds have been waiting all this time to show you who you could become if you simply learned to listen. The wind moved through the leaves now, a soft rustle, wings somewhere close. You are not alone anymore. You never were. You only had to stop scaring them away.